It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's today for a little indoor kart racing, and I would have much rather been racing at Joe's Karting on, Tuesday that hell struck the Midwest, and it was 114 heat index. I thought we were done with the heat. Oh, and then the next day it was 75. Yeah. So that's how it goes. You heard the voice there of Stan Cisar. I am Dan Taylor. Joining us also in the studio, obviously, the co-host, Dirk Houston, and Chad Robb, fantasy expert for... is there a sport you don't have fantasy tips on?
I do golf, football, and NASCAR.
Golf, football, and NASCAR. Any horse racing?
No, but I know enough about horse racing I can get you by.
I don't know. I might need your help because... No, I shouldn't bet. I love going to Horseman's Park on Thursday nights for the prime rib, and I should stay away from the betting. Stan Cisar in the studio, voice of Eagle Raceway and the RaceSaver Nationals and the Carpet Lane, Nebraska 360s. You've got a busy couple of days. You were just at I-80 on Friday, wrapping up the season points at Eagle Raceway last night, and then it's... You know what's to the wall for you for the next 4 days, not only as a car owner, but also as...
Probably almost for 2 weeks.
Yeah, as an announcer at Eagle Raceway.
Well, yeah, things kick off. We'll have a tech inspection. We'll be working on the car Monday and Tuesday. Take it down for tech inspection Wednesday evening. They got a practice session and the Jake Ida Memorial Race of Champions qualifying. That'll be taking place on Thursday night, and then come back 2 nights qualifying, Friday and Saturday, and then all the feature events will be taking place on Sunday. Probably do some maintenance on the car, get ready Monday and Tuesday, and next week got 2 days of racing action. Have the Fall Brawl. We've got the Charlie Clark Memorial Makeup feature for the Sprint Series in Nebraska. We start in second row outside, which is one of our better starting positions of the year, and looking forward to that. And then also have our regular feature as well as the Nebraska 360s. We'll have a big race, I believe 4,000, 5,000 to win, and a lot of great contingency and lap money, so it should be a great event.
And we're going to talk about the RaceSaver Nationals coming up at Eagle Raceway now. I want to kind of, in turn number one, we've got plenty of time. We've got about 30 minutes because we're going to take the entire first half of the show. And Chad, with you being the NASCAR fantasy expert, you're more than welcome to chime in. If you've never been to Eagle Raceway, I think it's time we get you out there and come enjoy some grassroots racing.
Love to go out there.
Well, I'd love to see him. Love to see him pick that. The feature in the sprint cars on Saturday nights.
So, in turn one, I kind of want to talk about the history of the RaceSaver Nationals. What this is the seventh year?
Seventh annual event. First race, we had 56 entries. Kyle McCutcheon out of New Mexico picked up the win, and very competitive feature. Actually, that was back, we were starting 2 wide the first year, and had a big crash heading into turn 1 on lap number 1. And so that made everybody just a little bit skeptical when Roger announced we were going to do the 3 wide start, saying we can't even get to turn 1 starting 2 wide. How are we going to do 3 wide? Well, knock on wood. It's everybody's minding their manners, and it's been pretty good so far. Jack Dover picked up the win in year number 2. Third season of the Nationals. It was John Carney II out of Lubbock, Texas, and he's driving a car that will be back in action this year, and Jake Buback has been driving that car for Ben Offill, and he's picked up the last 2 Belleville 305 Nationals now at Belleville High Banks, and he'll be considered one of the favorites. Jack Dover, the only person to win 2 RaceSaver Nationals A-main events, picked up the win again in year number 4. And then it was Jason Martin picking up the win in the 5th year, and last year Kevin Ramey out of Fort Worth, Texas. And that was a duel going right down to the end. I think Ramey and Martin. Martin had the lead actually with a couple laps to go, and by that time the weather, we were almost starting to get a little bit of a drizzle. And we said, man, we're 2 laps away. We got to finish this thing because the weather we had that weekend, it was almost a miracle that we got everything in. We got Saturdays and Sundays program in, starting at about 2:00 on Sunday afternoon. So, everybody did a great job, and above the call effort, just to get things done.
It was a true testament to Roger Hayden's stubbornness.
Yes.
He was not going to come back on Monday and race. He didn't want to make people do that. He didn't want to do that because it's been a long weekend for everybody.
Well, a lot of people, they come and they plan this thing. Monday is their travel day to get back home, so they can be back at their, the RaceSaver division. It's pretty much grassroots. Not a lot of really what you would consider pro racers, guys that are doing it. They're out on the road and don't have that full-time job every Monday. So you hate to see guys have to leave early and not get a chance to run the feature. So.
Stan Brody Tolik says, "Hey, tell Stan the man, thanks for all the help on my tour. It was a blast."
Oh man, and props to you, Brody, because everybody was just we were trying to do whatever we could to see your dream come true. To be able to race the Knoxville Nationals, and you had a little bit of adversity, and hopefully we could help you out. And it actually took the top wing and the nose wing off my own car and took all the lettering off and relettered it for Brody's car because he needed a white wing. They had a big all the Australian drivers were having a big meet and greet down at the town square in Knoxville, and got that thing up there just in the nick of time, and they got the car put back together, and it was great. It was a great effort, but I've known Brody, and this first year I met Joey, but I knew his other brother. Those guys have been back in the area, and great guys, and that would be a true bucket list to maybe make it over. An awful long flight. I don't know if I could take the flight that long to get down to Australia, but man, that would be cool to go down and see how you guys do it on the other end.
Well, I think if we, I would love to tag along. If you just shove me in your luggage, I would gladly sit in the luggage compartment for 12 to 14 hours if it meant I get to sit down in Australia for a couple of weeks and watch some racing. But
well, I'll tell you what, I think the racing down there is really
we got to
off
get
the charts.
down there. We've got to
off
get
the
down
charts,
there.
and I think Brody comes over here and he looks at these big the big half miles, and he goes, man, he's used to bull rings, down there, and a lot of action all the time. But it was great to have you up here, Brody, and if you're still listening in, glad I could help out.
Well, when you get the Action Signs corporate helicopter bought, we'll pitch in for fuel for that trip over
I don't
there.
know. After Dale's little adventure last weekend, I think I leave one foot firmly planted on the ground at all times.
Brody says he's got room for you, bud.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in on Facebook Live, Brody. Always do appreciate it. Brian Fayen tuning in from Eastern Iowa. Big fan of the radio show. In fact, he is one of the top fans for Facebook Live, or for the Front Stretch Facebook page. James Rowland tuning in says, thanks for making my work day go a little bit better, fellas. Want to come back to the RaceSaver Nationals. This is kind of a prelude to the Boone Super Nationals. So it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday show. And then while everybody else in non-winged cars is over at Boone on Sunday doing pre-tech, Eagle is crowning a RaceSaver champion, and then the fans can go over to Boone for the Monday through Saturday festivities.
Yeah, and I've been over to Boone a number of times through the years, and it's racing on top of racing. But I really kind of like being involved with the RaceSaver and the wing cars at our track, and I think it's a perfect fit.
Absolutely. And once again, you were talking about it. It's now going up to the 7th year. Last year was the first year they kind of had the celebrity grand marshal, and I think Rogers caught the bug.
Oh, yeah. And something, I just seen, Ken Schrader's going out to Chad Dolan's track this coming weekend. He'll be out there at Dawson County on Sunday night. That would have been great to be able to get Ken involved because Eagle, very similar, maybe a little bit bigger to Kenny's track down at Peevely down there. And, man, I think he needs to get on board with the RaceSaver Sprint program. I think he would love it. He's an old open wheel guy at heart.
Everything kicks off this coming Thursday, August 29th, with practice night, and then is that when they've rescheduled the Jake Ida Race of Champions?
All the qualifying is going to take place. The actual race is still going to be on Saturday night, but all the qualifying for that race, we did it last year on Friday night after all the qualifying heats and features and everything. By that time, the track was ready for a re-prep again. It was already almost midnight or so, and we were looking for a better way to get this thing done, and came up with the idea on the off season. Hey, let's add that to the Thursday night program. I think they're going to have some food and drink specials. Very inexpensive. Admission gate price. You get to watch all the cars. Right now we got 93 pre-entered. from 16 states.
And that's of Tuesday night when we pre-recorded the show.
Right, yeah.
You're going to have over 100, I think.
We're hoping to reach 100. We've been over 100 the last 3 years, but I talked to a lot of guys, and it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to get away for the weekend, and I think a lot of guys are finding out just how tough the competition is here. Yeah. And but I think we're seeing the best of some of these other areas that are coming in, and that's great. That's what we want to see. We want to see all the hitters from the different areas. There's guys coming from California, Pennsylvania, down Virginia, North Carolina. Of course, Texas always sends a really strong contingent of cars. South Dakota, guys come in, the regulars up at Jackson and stuff like that, entered in, and our weekly show, I think realistically we've got 20 guys that given the right circumstances could win the thing from the local level.
Maybe it's just because this is my first year being up in the booth and being able to watch these guys up close. The last 2 years I've got to watch them in the infield, which was a great view, but it kind of feels like the local guys have really found something, and they're really fast this year, to the point where I think you talked about it on Saturday night. There was 9 different winners in weekly competition at Eagle.
Yeah, 9 different winners, three repeat winners this year. Joey Danley finally got the job done, and gosh, you start toward the back. You got a 20-car field covered by a second difference in times. Mm-hmm. That's a blink. And we're probably 4.5 to 5/10 off the fastest times. Got a little work to do yet before the Nationals, but hopefully we can get back to the form we had last couple of years, and get a good starting spot. And if the chips fall in the right places, we feel like we've got as good a shot as anybody. Got a fast race car and a good driver.
We kind of started scratching the surface just a little bit. Thursday night, August 29th, is when things kick off. Pre-tech inspection, this is insane, starts at 9 a.m. on Thursday, and you need every minute of it with all those cars getting through inspection.
Well, actually, it starts, local cars can pre-tech on Wednesday evening, and we always try to come in on Wednesday night, get our pit space, get the car through tech, and it's one less thing to worry about on Thursday. And luckily, knock on wood, this will be the third time this engine's gone through tech, and haven't had any issues. Don't foresee anything this year because it's already been checked a couple times at the Nationals and 2 or 3 times on the front stretch, after a feature. But
what was the term you used on the Facebook page last weekend? It can turn into a bit of a witch hunt from time to time.
Well, yeah. We get into that. That was last week, but yeah, I will say,
and that's,
will say it's a very thorough tech inspection.
Yeah,
they put cars in 2 lines. They've got tech inspectors from all the different RaceSaver regions in different parts of the country. So you probably never see the same tech inspector 2 years in a row, and they run the cars through there in a pretty timely manner. And you get 100 cars through pre-tech in 8 or 9 hours. That's hustling through there, and it's not just let's check the air in the tires and durometer and measure a couple things and we're off. They're pulling heads and looking at the valve train and a very thorough tech inspection.
And you want that because the last thing you want is anybody to say, well, that guy's running cheated up engines or fuel or he's doping his tires.
Without a doubt.
That's the last thing you want when you come to the RaceSaver Nationals.
And you can't afford really to try to push the envelope. And like I said when I was talking to our engine builder, I says I want 5,000s. I says because I want to go to any racetrack anywhere, have any tech inspector, and I never want to ever be labeled or have something go wrong and have say, hey, you're not compliant. And I don't believe that extra 5,000s or the very small things that these guys are maybe trying to get right up to the edge. I don't think that's the difference between winning and losing.
And I think that's something that Dirk was very good at, was a very strict tech official. You probably pissed off a lot of promoters and car owners and fans and drivers, but that's the integrity of the sport.
That's your job.
You never really pissed off a promoter. But the car owners, I had people tell me they were going to shoot me when I left the track. And, stuff like that.
I'm sorry, I was grumpy that night. I didn't have my pork tenderloin.
And I had other guys say that they were going to give me a beer, But, It's got to all be done equal. If
Yeah.
you got no integrity there, then don't do the job. It's pretty simple.
Local pre-tech starts Wednesday night. National regional tech starts Thursday morning. Everybody gets through. Lunch is available. Then you have a press conference at 3 o'clock this coming Thursday. Grandstands open up at 5 o'clock with practice and hot laps going from 6 to 8:45. And then 9 p.m. you have the Jake Ida Memorial Race of Champions. Talk about the qualifying for that. How do I qualify to be in that race?
In order to even be considered for that race, you must have either been a RaceSaver National champion, won the RaceSaver Nationals, finished in the top 5 in your respective IMCA regional points or state points or your track points. And gosh, it's... there's no dogs in that baby. I'll tell you.
Right.
You better bring your A game. And we've had some great winners over the years. Kevin Ramey has won that. IMCA national champions from Oklahoma. Andy Schaus won it. It's guys that win. Jack Dover's won it. Guys that win that race. Are they're going to be players. They're going to be a hitter when the final feature rolls around for the Nationals. That's Thursday night.
And that's Thursday night. Let's take a quick break. We're into turn 1 pretty deep. Let's take a quick break. We'll catch our breath, talk to some Facebook Live people. We'll come back in turn 2.
In turn 1, getting in deep in turn 1, you could be in trouble at Eagle.
You could be sliding up the hill just a little bit.
It definitely means you went around the hole, though.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. Maybe not. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn 2.
The largest sprint car race in the country returns to America's home track, Eagle Raceway, over Labor Day weekend. 4 days of non-stop sprint car racing action, topped with Dr. Danger performing spectacular, heart-pumping, hair-singeing stunts. Over 100 sprint cars from across the nation will attack Eagle Raceway for the RaceSaver Sprint Car Nationals, and so can you for a limited time price of only $45 for a 4-day weekend pass. Visit EagleRaceway.com for tickets and more information. The RaceSaver Nationals at Eagle Raceway, Labor Day weekend. Be there.
Racers all over the country are discovering the benefits of powder coating their chassis. Powder coating offers a clean, even finish you will be proud to show off to fans and sponsors. Plus, it's a more durable surface. While looking beautiful, powder coating offers superior protection against corrosive chemicals typically spilled during routine maintenance. Bare frames start at $275 with estimates available if blasting or reworking is needed. Get your quote today by emailing Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com or by calling 712-623-4911.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 2, presented by Eagle Raceway. Get your tickets online at RaceSaverNationals.com. There's no more opportunities to get that big discount at the ticket office. That ended Saturday night. You could have gotten 4 days for just $45.
They snoozed and loosed.
You should have gotten it while you could have. But RaceSaverNationals.com, all the tickets and information. EagleRaceway.com also has information on that. Make sure to go to the Eagle Raceway Facebook page for more information, along with all of the RaceSaver racing that's going to be going on. Over 100 cars. We talked about it last year. 15 different heat races every single night, along with 8 or 9 features.
At least 8 or 9 features.
Every single night, they've thrown Dr. Danger on top of this.
And Dr. Danger, of course, kind of a well-known daredevil of the new millennium, and he does it all. He crashes cars, he blows himself up.
Yeah,
jumps cars, crashes cars, flaming school bus jumps into a wall of school buses. Name it. Him and his crew do it, and a lot of pyrotechnics and pretty spectacular stuff. He's been on the Nitro Circus with Travis Pastrana and those guys. American Daredevil, when that show was a weekly fixture on cable, and America's Got Talent made it quite a few rounds up before they finally got bounced off of that deal.
So he's the next round of Orville the Daredevil Clown?
Something like that, yeah.
Good old Sunset Staple.
Old Orville, yes, sir.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit more. Okay, so Friday comes around. Now it's time for qualifying, and this is the thing that that just is kind of a kicker to how tough the competition is going to be. If you want to start on the front row, or if you want to start in the A feature on Saturday night, you have to win your heat race.
You have to win your heat race.
Most heat races, top 4, top 5, maybe all of them go on to the A feature. Maybe some of them have to come out of the B. Very rarely does somebody have to come out of the C. This one, you might have to come out of the F. Is that one of them we had last year?
Oh, we had more than that, but you have to win to go to the A. If you're on second, you go to the B. If you're on third, you go to the C. Fourth to the D, and so forth, all the way back, through the features. And one thing we did change after the first year, if you draw rows 1 and 2 on one night, the best you can do is row 3 on your second night. And if you draw rows 3 and 4 the first night, then you've got a chance to start in rows 1 and 2 on your second night. Kind of equalizes the draw out just a little bit, so you know on one of those 2 nights you're going to be starting never worse than 4th. That at least gives you a shot, but and it's the luck of the draw. How tough is the competition in your heat race? Is it a stacked heat? Is it an easier heat? That could.
I like this format, and I don't want to talk like I'm dogging on the track, but I like this format much better than I like the Knoxville Nationals. I think that
way too much emphasis.
Yes.
In my opinion, way too much emphasis on time trials.
Yeah,
because your time trial is everything, and with the changing track conditions in the time trial, it's not really almost an equal playing field to begin with. But how you time will set up how you start in your heat race, how you finish your heat race. You need to make it in the top 4 in your heat race just to make the A feature. But then if you make the A feature and you happen to start up in front because you qualified not as good, you start by your qualifying time again. So even you might have started on the pole and won your heat race, you could be starting back in the 8th row.
Yeah, and what was it? Dover was the one that we had the example of, and maybe it's because I'm friends with him. It kind of irks me a little bit, but the guy went out and won his heat race, handedly won his heat race, and he started 19th in the B and the C.
And the percentage of points given for you get more points for qualifying than you do for your heat race.
Yeah.
Well, the name of the game is racing.
Right.
I think whenever you're on track in competition with other cars at the same time, that should be more emphasis than a 1-lap time trial, depending on track conditions. And then, like I said, it's based on your times again for the A feature starting lineup. I like what we're doing.
Yeah, I do too.
There is no perfect scenario. Yeah. There's going to be opinions. You can talk, 24/7 on qualifying procedures.
Let's do it. We're on Facebook Live. Let's do it. Stu Snyder keeps checking in. We haven't talked about him. He went for a bit of a bicycle during Saturday night. Last Saturday night.
That heavy clumpy cushion up there. Stu had all 4 off the ground. When he came down hard. It bottomed out the rear suspension of the car, and it came down. Kind of suffered a lower back injury, and texted me over, would we make an announcement to see if there's any chiropractors in attendance? Well, of course, Danny Nicolite, one of the drivers, is a chiropractor. And I says, 2 trailers over from ours, go see Danny Nicolite. And he did an adjustment on him and got Stu at least good enough to be able to finish the night. But he's still under some meds, and hopefully he's going to be better by this weekend because he's got a couple nights of racing coming up.
Yeah, he's got a busy week. And he did remind me, it was 2 years ago, he came out of the E and made his way all the way up into the A.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to our format again.
And how he got back there in that E feature, I believe, was
pesky tech officials.
They found some tainted fuel, and that's something that you be very careful with. You either buy your fuel at the track. There's no question. When we buy fuel, I use the same barrel every time. We don't turn in a barrel and take a new barrel because you don't know what's been in that barrel before you got it. We have them fill the same drum. Tracy and Cody do the same thing. They've got some big tanks, and just trying to play the percentages that we're not going to get caught up in getting something tainted from some other reason that we had. And I'm not going to say there's not some people out there might be playing with fuel, but I don't think
it's Stu. No.
Not particularly that deal, because you don't do that, especially at a national event. It's not worth the gamble.
And especially what he had to go through because of it. It was definitely not worth the payoff when it happened. So, and this happens a lot with drivers throughout the area. You talked to the same thing. I had an extra fuel barrel that I had gotten from Chad Cook, and it had sat in my garage. And you said, it's not that I don't trust you. It's not that I don't trust Chad. It's that I'm the one that's on the line.
Yeah.
If something happens, whether it be an illegal fuel sample,
we're not going to use it for a fuel barrel. I'm going to use it for a barrel, but it's not going to be a fuel barrel.
Or what if it's some chemical that I didn't know was in there? Chad didn't know was in there. Just happened to get in there from my garage, and all of a sudden you've got a blown engine because it didn't cooperate right.
Not even a blown engine, but like you say, it's some different things that are going to make the fuel test come out funny, And I've even heard of stuff that guys will. They would have a little bit of grab the wrong gas can, grab the wrong fuel jug or container, that had some ethanol in it or something like that, and a little bit of residue is all it takes to.
Well, even just some condensation, even water would screw up your fuel. It probably wouldn't fail a fuel test, but it definitely won't make the horsepower you were wanting.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so back to this. Thursday night, practice night, qualifying night for the Jake Ida Memorial. We come back Friday, and it makes it really, really simple. We're going to have as many heat races as we do, and then if you win the heat race, you're going to start in the A. You finish second, you're going to be in the B. You finish third, you're going to be in the C, and so on and so forth. So it's really simple when you're running your heat race to know where you're going to start, where you finish. So you know that if I get past that guy, that's one less feature that I have to roll through in order to get into the A if I can't win the race.
Yep, and then it come down to our A feature. The top 9 cars in Friday night's A feature will start inside, middle, and outside of the front 3 rows of our 27-car starting lineup.
Mm-hmm. So we set up the first 3 rows on Friday. We come back Saturday, do it all over again. Those that weren't able to qualify on Friday were able to come back on Saturday, try it all over again, and same format. If you win your heat race, you're starting in the front of the A. If you finish second, you're in the B. Third, you're in the C, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same format for Friday as it is for Saturday.
Another thing I like about our format is everybody, you're not going to see half the cars on one night and half the cars on the other night. Mm-hmm. You're going to see all the cars both nights, and you have 2 chances to race your way in, not just one chance to race your way in. Then after Friday night or Saturday night's events, top 9 in the feature, rows 4, 5, and 6. And then after the A feature will be the Jake Ida Memorial Race Champions. Then they'll compile the points. All your points in qualifying features will be put together, and they'll come up with a major list, and you'll find out where you're at in the pecking order, whether you're going to be either at that point the top 18 cars will be qualified for the feature. The next group of cars will be toward the front of the B. The next group of cars toward the front of the C, the D, on going back. And I'm going to say probably in the neighborhood of 12 features, because I'm expecting a minimum of 12 heat races.
Yeah.
And then out of each feature, we'll probably move anywhere from 2 to 4 cars, and up until the B. In the B, the top 9 cars will take the final 9 spots. That'll be rows 7, 8, and 9, 3 wide, for a 27-car starting lineup. And the nice thing about that is the 10th place finisher in the B main event pays $1,000 to win. Mm-hmm. Which is like an A feature. It pays $1,250 once you get in the show.
And you've been a big proponent of that. You would prefer to see,
without a doubt,
drivers that don't make it out of the C or don't make it out of the D take home something.
The first year we raced, we were less than stellar in the engine department, and we actually missed the show only by 2 spots. So we were like 2 spots away from making the show, and they didn't have. There was some extra money, and there still is. There's a lot of fans, a lot of sponsors donate extra cash for what they call a non-qualifiers fund, and to get that extra couple $100 after not making the A and missing only by 2 spots, that was kind of a nice surprise, and it kind of helps out. Right now we've got extra non-qualifiers bonus money all the way down into the E main event.
When you wonder how many tires you went through to get to that point on Saturday to not qualify for the A, how much fuel you had to go through, not only time spent, food, and a little bit of maybe the adult beverages to kind of cool the weekend off. I mean, there's just a lot of money money that gets spent by these teams, and even a little something coming back. If they know that if they don't make it out of the D, but they're still going to get $150, that may be the deciding factor whether they make the poll from Oklahoma or Texas or Florida.
Non-qualifiers on Friday night take home $100. Non-qualifiers on Saturday night take home $100. If you make the feature pays $250 to start and on up. But on Sunday, even if you're in the E, F, whatever feature, G feature, it's a minimum of $250 to take a green flag.
Nice.
So if you started all three races over the weekend, you're gonna be making at least $450 plus hopefully getting a little chunk of that non-qualifiers money, and that makes the trip home a little bit easier to take. Guys talk about races that pay, and they pay big money on top. $2,500 to win, but it pays $24 for second, $23 for third, $22.50, $22, $21.50, $21. You can be back around the 10th spot and be still making close to $2,000.
Nice.
Some of the races that pay a lot of money up on the top don't pay quite as good to the back, and they wonder why they don't get quite so many cars. It's just, our total purse, I believe, based on a 100-car field, was right at $98,000. Which is a pretty good chunk.
Yeah, James Rowland, the pit announcer at Eagle Raceway, and the party aficionado says, my goal this year is to party harder than the PA Posse guys. They can't hang with the Eagle bunch. And then he comments later, after the races, of course.
Of course.
You got a lot of work to do. We need you at your best.
Of course. I made it from the melon bar back to the RV, so life is good.
Can I tell my favorite story of you at Eagle?
No.
Okay.
No, that's all right.
All right. We'll tell that a different time when it's
another place, another time.
Had to do with the melon bar, I'm sure.
How'd you suss that one out? So, anyways, biggest 4 days of racing, and I think these races are very comparable. The glitz and the glamour of Knoxville is what makes it the Nationals. I think the grittiness and the quantity is what makes it the RaceSaver Nationals. I think that's two things that are very key to what makes these two races the biggest sprint car races in the country.
It's the Knoxville Nationals for the average working stiff, and when you can talk about money spent, dollars spent, and there's guys out there competing with 5, 6, 10-year-old cars that's got a pretty good bullet, and if you got a good driver turning the wheel and you got good setup in the car, if it's your night, it's your night. And it's just you don't have to spend cubic dollars to win.
Thursday night, adults can get in to watch practice and the qualifying night for the Jake Ida Memorial for just $2. And I did have to take a double look at that to make sure it wasn't a typo. Just $2 to get in. Friday night, adults are $15. Saturday night, adults are $18. Sunday night, adults are just $20. Kids are $5 all the way through, except for Thursday, they're free. And then kids 5 and under are free all weekend long. Really, you can't pass up this opportunity. I mean, I think I did the math, and if you'd have paid the $40 in advance when it originally was going on sale for the 4 days, you were paying somewhere around 40 cents a car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a heck of a deal. Yeah. You did. I definitely didn't pay that in Knoxville.
Less than $15 a night.
Right.
For a race of that caliber.
A great race. EagleRaceway.com for more tickets and information. RaceSaver.com for more information. So it's a great 4 days of racing. Even though it's just practice on Thursday night for $2, you might as well come out to the racetrack, enjoy a cold one. You get to go into the pits after the races, and it's going to be a very calm, easygoing night. It's not going to be like the hectic Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you want to meet some of these drivers from around the country, Thursday's your best opportunity to do it, and you can do it for just $2.
Yeah.
Stan, always do appreciate you coming in. Best of luck with the SCR 47. You've got Code Red behind the seat again.
Yeah, we had a pretty good run last weekend. Got started in front of that B and won that thing pretty handily. Then started back to 17th, got up to 9th. Pretty good. Car's not 100% yet. We found a couple little things that we plan to address before next weekend, and hopefully we can be in the hunt. You're never going to win them all. You can't. You got to be confident, but at the same time, you can expect how tough the competition is at this deal. Appreciate every spot you get.
Cole says, and I think he might be a little bit of a homer on this. Well, Joey Danley is going to be the one to watch.
Well, if I had to pick a dark horse that none of the people from around the country, maybe is not the name. Boy, he's been fast all year. He was really fast last Saturday night. And you got to give him give him a shot. He
was so fast.
He's going to be good, But there was a couple guys gave that race away too before Joey got the opportunity. Toby had a pretty good run going. He looked like he might have got 2 in a row before he tried to move the wall down in turn 1 and 2, but Wall didn't want to cooperate.
I thought Boston looked like he had a great car on Saturday night. I think Adam Gullion had a great car last Saturday night. I think there's probably 6 guys that are really hot right now locally, and I'd be interested to see how they. But the tough thing is you can't just walk into the RaceSaver Nationals hot. You got to walk in hot and lucky.
And we haven't seen Jason Martin racing locally much at all this year. But he's won some big shows around the country, some RaceSaver shows around the country, and he's been more of a money racer. He's also racing the 360 for those guys, the 82 car with the Nebraska 360 series, and doing a little traveling. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be fun. It's going to be, let's throw down and see, let the best man win.
RaceSaver.com. There's still an opportunity to get them in advance. You can pay via credit card. You got to pay that old service fee, though, but you can get them.
Check it out on Facebook. There's a lot of great information. They do have camping available. Yeah, with some powered spots, I believe, maybe a few left. Down there, it's one of those deals. The campground's been growing year after year, and everybody comes for the party, and some races break out.
I'm thinking of James Rowland while you're saying that. Yeah. Cole is now hedging his bets, and now he's throwing some money behind Jake Bubak also.
Right. Yeah.
These are just some guys that when you talk about it, these guys can easily hop into a car. Jake Bubak has got to be one of the better sprint car drivers right now locally.
Because
he can hop into about anything.
He's won in 4 different cars this year.
Yeah.
So you can't say those guys. They have a purpose-built Belleville car, and he is almost unbeatable down at Belleville. Not only is he a great driver, but they've got the car. But just to prove how good of a driver he is, like I say, he has won in 4 different cars this year. So it's not all the cars. Just like I said, you don't need to spend the most money and have the best engine because it's a combination, and a lot of it is that guy that's turning the wheel.
And 4 different car owners cheating it up 4 different ways, evidently.
Yeah.
He passed tech. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn 3. Chad, Robb, man, you've been sitting here hanging out, having a good time, right?
Learning about dirt racing.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn 3. And in turn 3, Chad's going to help us kind of talk about a couple of the NASCAR headlines. And then in turn 4, there's a playoffs just around the corner. They are a knockin'. There's some teams that are really sweating it, some other teams that are cruising into it, and some that are really hot. We're going to find out all about those coming up in turns 3 and 4 on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the front stretch and the home of MAV TV, featuring action from the Lucas Oil Late Model Series.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 3. I want to say a big thank you to Chad Robb. You've been hanging out all show long, and we can get a little long-winded talking about dirt racing, so I appreciate you kind of hanging around.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
Fantasy racing tips from Chad. Excuse me, NASCAR tips from Chad at Fantasy. I'm going to get it right the 4th time. At Fantasy NASCAR Tips from Chad is your Facebook page, and that's the best place to follow you. And you do give some kind of surface information, but the best way is fantasyracingtips.com. Get a membership, and I think it was like $75 for a year.
Yeah, for a year.
And it's
I got $4.99 membership, and that gets you all the NASCAR picks.
And that's well worth it when you talk about being in some of these sports betting leagues where you're actually putting money up and you can win some money. Because you talked about you had quite a few people after like the fourth race of the season had already won their subscription back.
Oh, yeah. After, I think it was the first 2 months, most of the people that played my picks in the DraftKings FanDuel games won their money back. They're $75. In the NASCAR.com Fantasy Live game this year, my picks are beating 99.5% of the field of everybody that plays on NASCAR.com. Wow. And this, if I finish these last two races in the top 99%, that'll make 6 years in a row. So,
jeez, I mean, I hate to call it a surefire bet, but
so what happens the last 10 races if you just got two more? That's only to the playoffs.
What they do is they have a playoff game on NASCAR.com where during the regular season, you get 10 races for each driver, and then in the playoffs, I think you get 3. So they give everybody a shot to get back in the game. If you're at the end of your league standings, well, at least you can come back for the playoffs and try to win that.
In turn 3, I wanted to talk a little bit about the NASCAR news and notes. There's quite a few stories that are going around we haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about. So I wanted to talk about them. We talked a little bit about it on Sunday morning, but I wanted to cover it now. Kind of the heartbreaking news. We talked about it while we were off the air just on Facebook Live. Mid last week is when Matt DiBenedetto posted that he was going to be losing his ride with Levine Family Racing, and kind of the community's come behind him. And unfortunately, there's nothing really that the community can do because it's going to cost somewhere around $20 million to put this guy into a ride. So he either needs to catch a really lucky break with a big team that's got a sponsorship already done and can give him an opportunity like that, or he's going to have to go out and find the sponsorship. And that's just, unfortunately, it's the name of the game. It's the business we're in anymore.
Well, exactly. And, I haven't talked to anybody, but I'm 99% sure Toyota's driving all of this because they're a big source of funding for Joe Gibbs, and Levine is a family operation. And you see him the other night, running at Bristol, he had a Toyota fire suit on, so they're obviously pumping a lot of money into that outfit too. And
they want something with Christopher Bell. If you think this is something that is unique to NASCAR, you're not paying attention, because there was just a scenario 6-7 years ago with a football player up in Green Bay that was still winning games, still a Hall of Famer, and still one of the best, and he got let go because the guy sitting on the bench was the next one to come in. And I think this is the exact same scenario we're seeing with Matt DiBenedetto and Brett Favre. He had Aaron Rodgers right behind him, and unfortunately Matt DiBenedetto's got Christopher Bell, who is winning everything on dirt, not everything on dirt, but he's winning a lot, and he's tearing it up in the Xfinity Series.
Well, he's got 5 Xfinity wins, and basically him and Tyler Reddick and Cole Custer, the 3 guys favored to win the championship. Pretty much one of those 3 guys is going to do it, just depending on how the luck falls for him. And that's something Matt DiBenedetto has never had, a huge career in Xfinity or a big career in the trucks. So he doesn't have, a resume that Christopher Bell does.
Right.
And Christopher Bell is several years younger, and they're both fairly polished in front of the microphone, so there's no big deal there for the sponsors. But if a sponsor is going to get behind somebody, they're going to get behind the younger guy. It's just nature of the beast.
And I got to imagine that Christopher Bell is probably kind of sitting there going, hey, guys, I've got opportunities to go race. And maybe Stewart Haas Racing is on him about coming and racing the 14 in 2021, or maybe Chip Ganassi's on him to come race the 1 and get rid of Kurt Busch, because I've heard that talks aren't going well for Kurt Busch and Chip Chip Ganassi Racing.
I think that's exactly it. And they just don't want to lose Christopher Bell, and it stinks for Matt DiBenedetto, but I think he's got such a fan base right now that's really pushing for him. He's going to fall on his feet somewhere. He's going to get a good ride next year. If it isn't in the Cup Series, he'll be one of the top teams, probably even Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series.
He's going to drive, the Xfinity. Well, he's driving, I believe, that Ohio road courses this afternoon.
Yeah.
I think they moved it over to Sunday because there's no Cup race, but he's driving that in the IK9 car for Gibbs.
Yep.
So,
the ride that Jeffrey Earnhardt used to have.
Yeah.
Well, that's been through a few hands. So.
Yeah. So that's the and go back to you kind of look at the whole situation. You understand, Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota may look like the bad guys, but I think their kind of hands are forced because you've got a commodity in Christopher Bell that can do so much more. It's the old coaching testament. Do you want the guy who can run to first in 11 seconds in his 15th season, or do you want the guy who can run to first in 12 seconds in his first season?
Well, it's still a different car and an unproven commodity.
Yeah.
But that's where they're going to put their, they're putting all their eggs in Christopher Bell's basket. Like I said, I hope Matty D would somehow, a big corporation would say, hey, we like this kid. We'd like to see him do well. And, try and put a second team together with that 95 team, a partner team. That's what Furniture Row Racing did when they picked up Eric Jones in the 78 car.
Yeah.
Or 77 car.
And they put him in a second Furniture Row Racing car that only ran for that one season, right?
1 year.
Just to put him into a Cup Series ride and say, okay, here, cut your teeth a little bit at this organization, and when we get another seat available, you can come over here. And that's exactly what happened. Speaking of contract negotiations, Kurt Busch, 2020 plans are still not set. We just talked a little bit about it. Chip Ganassi Racing. When he moved over to the one in this season, it was only a 1-year contract. And while he has expressed interest in returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, nothing's been finalized yet. When he asked about his plans for next year in the media center, he says, I don't have anything solid for next year yet. Once again, how many years has he been dealing with this? And every year he seems to come on hot at the end of the season.
I think about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And, he's a driver that bets on himself, and he always wins. So.
And he had some on-track issues. He was, a little bit temperamental on the track sometimes and had some issues there, and some teams shied away from him. But I think he's a lot like his brother in the fact that he's matured. Kyle's done a real good at maturing in the last several years since he got married and had a kid. Kurt's got married a second time. Legs. And
I think the broken legs had a little something to do about it, just a little bit in there too.
Probably.
It calmed him down just enough, because I always thought he was a bit too aggressive behind the wheel. He was too aggressive, and Mark Martin was too nice. And neither of them had won a championship to that point to where he had a kid, he got married, and he broke his legs, and I think he found that happy medium.
And, and then he turned around that very year that he broke his leg and won the title.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody's bitched, well, he didn't race the whole season. He won the title by the rules NASCAR laid out for him.
And he qualified for the playoffs in 10 less races than anybody else. That's whenever somebody says, oh, they gave it to him. Well, no, they didn't.
Not even close.
All they did was said, if you qualify for the playoffs, we'll let you in. He not only made it into the top 20, he has to be in the top 25, right?
Top 30.
Yeah. Not only did he make it in there, he won 4 races, and he was in the top 16. So he would have pointed his way in regardless. Anyways, moot point there. Chad, when you talk about a driver like Kurt Busch and you're factoring into your fantasy tips, how much does being on the hot seat of not having a ride in 2020 factor in for you?
Not much. I pretty much just go off of practice times, track history. This year, this new 550 horsepower aero package has really thrown a wrench into my predictions, but I'm doing better than most everybody else. They really brought the draft into play. So really, I don't look at personal stuff. I look at what they're doing on the track. And this year, more than any year I've ever seen in the past, momentum is huge. I mean, we've seen some huge momentum swings. Like Kyle Busch got off to a really hot start, and now he's kind of faded. I mean, fading for Kyle Busch is like finishing 5th, 6th, 7th, But he isn't winning races the same way he was. And, when after him, it was Martin Truex winning every week, and now it's Denny Hamlin, finishing in the top 3 every week.
Looked like Harvick was going to get into a hot spot, when he was cutting them up down at Bristol, and then all of a sudden, tranny's out.
Yeah.
And it was right after they said it. I don't remember which one. I think it was Jeff Burton said, man, he's really hitting stride at the right time. And about that time, he was out of the race.
He was hitting the wall, not the stride.
Oh, he didn't hit the wall. He just blew the tranny.
One of the stories that Dirk and I were talking about before we got going for the show today, we all know that NASCAR is going to be switching to the Gen 7 cars in 2021. And a story came out late last week that Goodyear had been working with NASCARs on plans to introduce a new type tire into the Cup Series. Currently, they're running a 15-inch wheel, and they're looking to increase to an 18-inch wheel. We've talked about it time and time again. The first thing I don't like about this is that these tires are expensive enough. If Goodyear's adding 3 more inches to the tire, they're going to be adding quite a bit more dollars to it.
No. It's not wider. The wheel this way, bigger round.
Yeah, but you're still going to have more rubber.
No, you'll have less rubber. You'll have less sidewall. The tire width isn't going to change.
That's what this says, though. It will actually increase the surface contact by 4 inches.
Then they're going to a wider wheel too, because they couldn't increase the tire 4 inches on the same width wheel that they've got now. So they're changing the wheel in 2 different directions. The article I said just talked about the 18-inch wheel and the single lug nut.
Mm-hmm. Because they talked about that the advantage would be that it would add more surface area touching the track. Let's see. Here we go. Stricker explained there is a lot to be determined on exactly how this will affect racing on the track, but with a wider tire, there will be an increased contact patch between the tire and the track.
Okay, that's a different article than I've read.
Currently, the contact patch is about half the size of a sheet of a copy paper, which 4 inches. Half the size of a sheet, so it's an 8 by 11, so it'd be about a 4-inch contact. Any increase will give drivers more grip, but according to Strucker, it won't necessarily increase heat buildup in the tire, and the tire compound has yet to be finalized and would change from track to track like it does right now. So, back to that. Goodyear's obviously going to be, if they're adding wider tires, more rubber, then these tires are now going to go up. And a $20,000 tire bill at a Cup weekend is probably now going to be a $25,000.
Well, and they still didn't say that it's going to be a wider tire. They just said a wider contact patch. The way the cars are set up with your caster and camber angles and everything, and the tires lean, only about half the tires on the track most of the time.
Strucker explained there is a lot to be determined on exactly how this will affect racing, but on the track, how it will affect racing on the track, but with a wider tire. He specifically said wider tire.
Well, like I said, I hadn't read anything about the wider tire or a wider wheel, because if they go with a wider tire, they're going to need a wider wheel.
Okay.
But the 18-inch part is the diameter of the wheel. It's not the width of it, because that'd be like an IndyCar wheel.
Apparently, it does have to do with the width it also. So, okay, well, I guess we're not going to agree on this. We'll just give up on the bill part of it, that it's going to be more. And
I'm saying it's going to be more.
Okay.
That's what I said in the first place. Because they also, in the same article, they're talking about going to the single lug nut.
Mm-hmm.
Like an IndyCar or a sprint car. I mean, something like that. And teams having to retool rear ends, retool all their front hubs. I mean, the cost, and even a small team owns 40 wheels.
Mm-hmm.
So all your wheels are going to be new, and obviously if they're going to be new, they're going to cost more.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a huge cost and a big hit to small teams.
Yep. And the Gen 7 car, we're kind of, some of the things NASCAR said about this car is that it's supposed to be a cost-saving measure. They're supposed to be, one of the things they want to switch to is basically a bolt-on body, so that when a car happens to get loose in the corner and just taps the wall, they could basically just unbolt the part that was damaged and replace it with new pieces, as long as the frame and the supports weren't damaged in the process.
They can do that now. They can cut off a fender and put a new fender on. That's the smoke and mirrors part NASCAR's throwing out to the fans that don't know any better. Look at a late model. A late model goes out and smacks the wall with a right rear fender. If it's the 3rd or 4th time they've done it and they beat it straight 3 or 4 times, they go get a new piece of aluminum and rivet it on, and they're done. NASCAR, they got to weld it on, do a little body work. It's the same thing there. But the honeycomb style carbon fiber bodies that the Xfinity Series is now using are a lot tougher. You see these guys, get into some pretty good wall shots, and nothing happens to the body. Scrapes off some decals and some paint, and anything that happens to the body, like if they hit it with a quarter panel, it'll tend to break the rear cover because it's squishing it together, and it's not meant to do that. So it might break that on the end, but the actual body is fairly rigid and, keeps its integrity.
And if the Gen 7 car is supposed to be a little bit more of an aero-friendly car. It's supposed to be more of what the aero package we have today, and it's supposed to be a cost-saving measure. The last two things we've heard about this seems to be going in the direction. If Goodyear is going to be switching to a larger tire, which is going to be a more expensive tire, if NASCAR is going to implement this single lug nut, there is going to be some cost involved in that. And so once again, we're back to the system of every time you make a rule change, it costs somebody. And while it may cost Joe Gibbs Racing and Rick Ware Racing the same amount of money, Joe Gibbs can take it, Rick Ware can't.
Right. And it's not Goodyear that's doing this. I mean, NASCAR, if NASCAR says we're keeping the same wheel and tire combination, Goodyear is going to make those tires. Mm-hmm. You know, so Goodyear, it's not their decision.
Well, and looking at it, it kind of feels to me like this article, like Goodyear's been the one approaching it, because obviously they want to say, well, if I can have an 18-inch tire that's larger and wider, then I can charge more and I can make more. And we're in this country, and it's a capitalist society. We're here to make money.
Well, you do hear the drivers complain from time to time, and your boy Tony Stewart was probably the biggest critic of Goodyear tires. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so maybe they think if we throw a little wider tire on it, it's going to make these guys not complain about it, but the guys that win always praise the Goodyear tire.
Yeah. Right, yeah, and that's what, Chris Morris down at Quaker Steak, one of our great sponsors, has been saying for years, narrow these tires up. It's going to be less cost for the teams. It's going to be less surface area on the track. These cars are going to slide around. You're going to have far less grip, and you're going to see racing go back in the hands of the drivers. Narrow these babies up, and seems like we're going the other way.
Well, yeah, but, we're not the powers that be. Let's just put it that way. Like I said, I tried to, when they first started changing all these points rules and stuff, I said, well, I got some ideas. I'd like to talk with somebody. And I said, you're a tech guy. Get out of here. But I've got some ideas that were just so simple that would have kept basically the status quo in racing. Dan, I know I've told you before that the lucky dog rule, when I first heard of that, I said, boy, is that garbage. Yeah. Because back when they raced back to the yellow, the car that might have just got past and gone 8 laps down would beat the leader back to the yellow to get that lap back. Now it doesn't matter where the guy is that's 1 lap down as long as he's the first guy. He could be just about ready to go a second lap down.
Yeah.
And still get the lap back. If they'd go to the guy, no matter how many laps down he was, that's closest to the leader and give him his lap back, that would have been almost like the regular racing. And maybe go 2 spots, because usually 2 or 3 guys were able to race back past the leader, depending on how big his lead was.
Yeah. And if he gave it to him.
Right. There was a lot of times they'd slow down and let a couple guys get a lap back. If somebody had Kyle Busch a lap down and he'd keep him a lap down. He'd race him back to the stripe, so he couldn't get his lap back.
Yeah, but if you're 8 laps back, what's it matter if you get 1 lap back? I mean, if you're 8 laps back at that point and you get a lap back because you were able to get by the leader at the start-finish line, you're probably going to lose that lap in the next 15 green flag laps anyways.
Yeah. Well, it just depends. You might have had to sit out. You might have had a simple problem. You had to go in the garage and, you broke a stud on a wheel, so you had to replace that stud. You went down 8 laps or whatever. It's still, if you move up to 7 laps and maybe you take a wave around a little bit later, now you're 6 laps down, and there's only 1 car 1 lap down and 1 car 2 laps down, you might end up getting some lucky dogs in there. The way they do it now, it's if you're not 1 lap down, you're pretty much out.
Yeah, well, I mean the reason why they said they went to it was safety, because it was a safety issue with these drivers trying to race back, and when they want everybody cooling down when that caution comes out, everybody was hauling to the start-finish line, and then it was causing a traffic jam into turn 1 when those guys who had already crossed it were back off the gas.
It wasn't causing a traffic jam in turn 1. It was just dangerous racing because, like you said, some of your leaders were slowing down, and your guys that were a lap down were racing. There were some accidents and pit road accidents and all kinds of stuff going on because of it.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back in turn 4. Chad, you're going to shine. We're going to talk playoff picture. Those that are qualified, those that are in, and those who are on the outside looking in for the last 2 races. We're going to take a break on the front.
The largest sprint car race in the country returns to America's home track, Eagle Raceway, over Labor Day weekend. 4 days of non-stop sprint car racing action, topped with Dr. Danger performing spectacular, heart-pumping, hair-singeing stunts. Over 100 sprint cars from across the nation will attack Eagle Raceway for the RaceSaver Sprint Car Nationals, and so can you for a limited time price of only $45 for a 4-day weekend pass. Visit EagleRaceway.com for tickets and more information. The RaceSaver Nationals at Eagle Raceway, Labor Day weekend. Be there!
Racers all over the country are discovering the benefits of powder coating their chassis. Powder coating offers a clean, even finish you will be proud to show off to fans and sponsors. Plus, it's a more durable surface. While looking beautiful, powder coating offers superior protection against corrosive chemicals typically spilled during routine maintenance. Bare frames start at $275 with estimates available if blasting or reworking is needed. Get your quote today by emailing Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com or by calling 712-623-4911.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to it. Turn 4 brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. No NASCAR to watch today, but there is cornhole to play tomorrow. If you want to get involved in the 3rd edition of the Cornhole Tournament at Quaker Steak and Lube, you can do it on their Facebook page. Just purchase their tickets. It's a heck of a deal. $20 for a 2-person team or $30 for a 2-person team plus a lube tube. All the registration money minus the lube tube fees. Every $20 for every team goes into the giant prize pool. 60% of the prize money goes to first place, 30% goes to second place, and 10% goes to third place. It's all a cash payout at the end of the night. Last time they did it, they had 34 teams that participated. And they're expecting somewhere of about 40 this time. So if you want to get involved in that, go over to Quaker Steak and Lube Facebook page and go to the events, the Cornhole Tournament, and you can purchase the tickets there.
How many lube tubes participated?
23. 23 were purchased in advance. I know a lot more were purchased afterwards.
There had to be some refills in there and probably a few more that got purchased.
Those bartenders were pretty busy getting that. And by the way, Sam Adams Oktoberfest is on tap at Quaker Steak now. So
what is that?
The best beer all year long. I love me some Oktoberfest. All right, Chad Robb joining us from FantasyRacingTips.com. You can get an annual subscription. I know we're coming down to the end of the season, but the subscription folds over to next year.
Yes, it lasts for 1 year from the date of purchase.
Mm-hmm. So it'll get you all set up for February for Daytona, for the 2020 schedule, all the changes, all the fun stuff.
And the Horseshoe Casino open this past week, and it gets you set for FanDuel and trips to Council Bluffs, and yes.
Chad, are you going to be able to join us this year at Homestead? I know you're still a little bit nervous because you want to be in front of your computer with a solid internet connection because you tweet out some really good information.
Oh, yeah. Again, follow me on Twitter at Mr. Fancy NASCAR. I tweet out during the race. And always scan the drivers on the radio and tell you what's going on with their cars.
FantasyRacingTips.com for more information on that. Chad, we were just getting around to talking about getting the season started, going to Atlanta, going to Pocono for the first time, Vegas, and now we're 2 races left before we finish up the playoffs. And there's quite a few big-name drivers that should be in the playoffs, but they're not. Clint Boyer is on the outside looking in, and Jimmy Johnson. That's 2 of your biggest drivers that you would think should be guaranteed picks getting into the playoffs at the beginning of the season.
And I don't think they're going to get in.
No?
It's not looking good. They both are struck by bad luck. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jimmy's got really bad luck. And Clint, he's starting to come around a little bit, but these last 2 tracks aren't very good tracks for him, Darlington and Indianapolis. And I think we're going to get a new winner, a guy that hasn't won yet this year. He's going to win next week.
Can you tell us who, or do I need to pay you the $75?
Well, that'd be the guy that's led over 100 laps in the last 3 races at Darlington, and that's Kyle Larson.
You're on the Kyle Larson bandwagon
again.
Well, it's not a bandwagon.
About a guy with no luck.
He finished third a couple weeks ago. He finished 8th last week. He finished in the top 10 before that. He's getting hot at the right time. And Darlington ranks as his second best track. They're going to be right up against the wall. And he's going to be tough to beat.
As long as you don't try and knock the wall down.
Yeah. Fans on Facebook, you're more than welcome to ask Chad a question, and he'll only charge you $65 to answer. I'm just kidding. But Chad will answer the questions the best he can. If you want to know if your favorite driver is going to get in, and let me just say right off the bat, Brian Fayen wants to know how is Landon Castle going to do in the next 2 races in StarCom.
If he's in the next 2 races, that's the thing. No, he's doing pretty good. Couple weeks ago, was it last week at Bristol? He started like 29th and finished 26th, so he ain't doing too bad.
Oh, and he had a great run in the Xfinity car.
Yeah.
Got a top 10.
Yeah.
Brian is Eastern Iowa listener, supporter, big fan. Would always go over to Hawkeye Downs, which is an asphalt NASCAR home track, and that's where he met and used to watch Landon Castle race all the time when Landon used to race at Hawkeye Downs, since he's a Cedar Rapids boy. And then you've got guys like Ryan Newman and Daniel Suarez that are on the bubble. Newman's sitting in 16th, Suarez is sitting in 15th, Eric Jones is 14th. Do you see either of any of those 3 drivers falling back? They've got some pretty substantial points leads over Boyer and Johnson in 17th and 18th, respectively.
The best points racer in NASCAR is Ryan Newman.
Yeah.
No kidding.
He is very good. He knows what it takes to get them points in the stages and, keep his car up front. He might not be up there during the whole race, but at the end of the race, you look at standings, how Newman finished 9th.
Especially at Darlington, he's got just about a foot to foot and a half wider car than anybody else.
Yeah, it's a good track. It's an old-fashioned racetrack, and he's an old-fashioned driver, and they match up well together.
Isn't Johnson statistically good at Darlington minus the last 2 years?
Yeah, he's not too bad at Darlington. It's just he's been in a slump for a long time, and I can't see him snapping out of it in the next 2 weeks.
Do you think he's back in 2020 or 2021?
I think he'll be back next year, and after that, I don't know.
Yeah. It depends on the sponsorships too, huh?
It depends on them young drivers. If Tyler Reddick or some of those drivers, I know he's with RCR, but there's a lot of young talent that's waiting for them big seats.
And Hendrick knows how to go and get somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when he's got somebody like Jeff Gordon that's helping him. He seems to be kind of grooming Jeff to take over the operation in the next 5 or 6 years. And I think Jeff is kind of sitting into that scout role really well. And he was down at Knoxville when we were there for the 410 Nationals. He goes around to these dirt races, and he's kind of paying attention to some of the dirt drivers that are making hay.
Well, I think that was a sponsor deal, that he just probably went with, who was on the car? Exalta.
Exalta, yeah.
Yeah. And, that was one of Jeff's sponsors that he brought into NASCAR. So I think that's why he was at Knoxville when that got put on the 41 car. And
any surprise winners at Indy, the last race of the regular season?
I don't think so. Indy's a horsepower track, and usually those Fords are almost unbeatable. I think you're going to see either Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. They'll be the cars that will be tough to beat there. You can never count out Joe Gibbs, but that Yates horsepower at Indy is awful tough.
Yeah, and that's a fact. The Fords seem to have more horsepower than everybody else, but Toyota, the handling right now is such a big deal. And so Kyle Busch has had good runs there. Who did Busch crash with a couple years ago? Was that Martin Truex?
Yeah.
2 years ago, I think they crashed going through 1 and 2.
I know Penske won last year. Brad Keselowski won both of these races last year. He won Darlington and Indianapolis.
That's right. He went on that streak. It was Ford, Toyota, Toyota, Ford, 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 Chevy, Toyota, Ford, Chevy. That's your top 10.
Yeah.
But last year, the Chevy struggled everywhere, so the fact that they weren't up there.
The Chevys even struggled in the shop.
Yeah.
That was a rough year for them. Any other kind of going into the final couple of races? I know that when I'm thinking about who I'm going to pick, so right now I'm sitting 17th in our Pick'ems contest. And I'd like to get into the top 16, but I don't want to use somebody that I need to save for the top 10. And when I'm looking at somebody like Clint Boyer that's on the bubble, he's kind of attractive to me to maybe take at Indianapolis because he's on the bubble, so he might push a little bit harder. But then I worry he's going to push too hard, and he's going to end up in the wall or spun out or something.
I like the drivers like Eric Jones, even Daniel Suarez. I like him more than Clint Boyer.
Well, him and Boyer are in the same boat.
I know, but it seems like Daniel Suarez is more consistent than Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer is either going to finish 7th or 37th, and Daniel Suarez is going to finish either 10th or 15th, and I rather play the safe driver than I would taking a shot with the Clint Boyer.
Well, and Suarez is going to have the Ford horsepower.
And right now, Suarez is in the playoffs, 2 positions to the good. Daniel is actually sitting 16th in the point standings, but let's see, Newman would fall, Almirola would fall back.
If you want a driver that's way off the radar, that's having one of his worst seasons ever, and this is by far his best track, and that's Austin Dillon. For some reason, he gets in that throwback number 3 car with Earnhardt stuff all over it, and he really runs well at Darlington.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's see where he finished last year.
Last year will probably be the only year he finished bad.
Well, with the new, the new horsepower and downforce combo, you kind of got to throw previous years a little bit out the window.
The thing is, RCR is going to qualify up front.
16th.
16. Well, still, that ain't bad for him.
He started 18th. Yeah, you're right. He started 18th, finished 16th.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his other finishes this year, and they're like 35th, 37th.
He was last car on the lead lap.
Yeah.
So he finished on the lead lap. How far do you expect some of these? Let's have you back on in a couple of weeks, and I want to after the playoffs get started, maybe that first weekend going into the first race, going into what is it? Vegas is
Las
the first race.
Las Vegas is where they kick it off.
Oh shoot, we're in Knoxville that weekend, so I can't get you on there. But I want to talk. Maybe have you on the
And
following weekend.
Let's get him at the after the first cutoff when they're down to 12 drivers.
So you want to get him for the Charlotte Roval race, going into that race or afterwards? Because I want to know who
after
you
the
think's
cutoff.
Okay.
After the Roval.
So after when they're down to 12 drivers, when they've lost the first 4, let's bring him back.
So we'll have you back on October 6th for Dover, at Dover.
Sounds good.
Okay. FantasyRacingTips.com. Get more information on that, and I highly suggest you get that. I was strongly considering getting a subscription because I was back in 60th at one point.
I give picks out for this one and done, where you can pick a driver one time throughout the year.
Okay.
And my drivers this year that I picked are averaging 9.8 for their average finishing position. And I've used some pretty crappy drivers.
You've got to, because with only 38, 39 drivers to pick from. But I used them
at the right tracks.
Yeah.
And I used Ty Dillon at, I think, Martinsville or something like that, and he finished around 11th or 12th, something like that.
Yeah.
So you just got to know when to use them drivers.
Our problem is with stage points, it's like I had Hamlin last week, but he didn't get a point in the first 2 stages.
Oh, yeah.
So we, even though he won the race.
Now those bubble drivers,
you really got
you won in that type of game because, Clint Boyer, when everybody comes in 2 laps before the stage ends to get new tires to start up front in that stage, he'll stay out and get them stage points.
Yeah,
and that's just extra points for you.
Absolutely. FantasyRacingTips.com. More information from Chad Robb. Chad, always do love having you on the show. Don't get to have you on near enough, so hopefully we can get you on more as the playoffs continue and the elimination races begin to loom.
No problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
We're going to wrap it up for today. I want to say a big thank you again to Quaker Steak and Lube for supporting the front stretch. Get over to the Lube for all the NASCAR and dirt late model racing action on the big screens in the Brickyard. Monday is the Cornhole Tournament. Tuesday is all you can eat wings. Wednesday, bike night. Thursday, classic car night. And Fridays and Saturdays, it's a little busy in there because everybody wants to get their wing fixed. Do you have a favorite sauce over there? Are you a wing fan?
Not much.
You
of
go
a
over for
wing
you
fan.
like the burgers, don't you?
Yeah.
I got a burger for it's called the Jacked Up BLT.
Oh yeah.
It'll
Sounds
change your
good.
life.
Yeah.
It's not a burger; it's a sandwich.
Yeah, it is. If
it's
you come
good.
if you come over to the Homestead party, I'll buy you one.
All right. Sounds
I'll
great.
put it on the front stretch tab. That's the reason why we don't have a corporate helicopter yet. Is because I keep racking up the front stretch tab at Quaker Steak.
I mean, that's what I had when we had the truck race a couple weeks ago. Was the Jacked Up BLT.
We'll be back next weekend, live once again on this coming Sunday. We're going to recap the championship night at Eagle Raceway and get you points when we come back for that live show, it's going to be because of the RaceSaver Nationals. So we're going to review all of that. Stan will probably join us on the show and talk about the Thursday, Friday, Saturday night action, and then get you set for Sunday night at Eagle Raceway. We'll also get you set for Sunday night at I-80 Speedway, which is Championship Sunday for their NASCAR season points. So we'll be live again next Sunday to get you set for all of that and to talk about the local dirt racing action. Plus, we'll get you set for Darlington. Don't forget NASCAR racing tips, fantasy racing tips.com for more information on Chad. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.